Musician and comedian Weird Al Yankovic is coming to the island. Get ready to laugh and sing along when he takes the stage at the Treasure Island Amphitheater on June 28th. Tickets are on sale now. Get yours today at TICasino.com.
Ben Goessling, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com. And Access Vikings is courtesy of Standard Heating and Air, StandardHeating.com. And we greatly thank them for sponsorship of The Scribe, who's off to London tomorrow. Do you enjoy these London journeys? And good morning.
Good morning. I actually really do. This is the...
You have little kids.
I do have little kids.
Right.
The little kids are coming along for not the first, but the second time.
Well, it's a common thread. I mean, when we were in Cleveland, we were there 4.5 days.
Yep.
You didn't go. That's right.
That's right. Yes.
But it's like I would talk. We were there so long. You had an ample opportunity at the team hotel or at the joints to chat with people about. Yeah. So it was just a great common thread that either it's Vikings media relations people, coaches, or whatever. The ones who were skipping down the hallway and always smiling had little kids. Mm-hmm. The ones who were like, yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's, I'm excited to get back home. Yeah. I mean, they didn't have little kids, you know what I mean? Yeah. So absence makes the heart grow fonder is the best way to look at it.
In this case, it's a family trip. We're my wife and kids are all coming along.
Nice.
So my wife, this will actually be her third time there.
Very sweet.
And the kids went in 22 as well, and they're coming along on this one. They were like, Dad, we need to go. We got to go to London again.
Are you going to take the small children to learn more about Jack the Ripper and and
over at
maybe the werewolf and like Carfax Abbey and Dracula?
No, they're more into we'll do the Harry Potter stuff. And then we did like the Churchill War Rooms last time, which those are really cool. If anybody gets a chance to go check those out, it's basically where the Brits ran their World War II effort because London was getting bombed so much. They moved their entire basically war operation underground and war ends, everybody goes back above the ground and there's no reason to be back down there because why would you? So what that means is that is fairly, it's been updated for museum stuff, but it's fairly untouched.
Yeah.
It's kind of the way it was. So you get to see where Winston Churchill slept in this bunker and kind of directing where all the war meeting efforts were. It's a fascinating
that sounds amazing.
Museum. So if you get a chance to go, it's awesome.
So there's more to London than Big Ben and the London Bridge?
Yes. And my kids are history wonks, much like their dad. So some of that stuff. We did Westminster Abbey last time, which was kind of fun to be like, hey, the coronation, because it was right before King Charles' coronation. So we were like, this is the chair he's going to be sitting in when this happens in a couple of months for the first time in any of our lives because Queen Elizabeth had been the queen forever. So, so there's a lot of history to see and a lot of fun things to see. It'll be a lot of fun. The kids enjoy it, and it'll be a good trip. I like them overall.
I heard Bill Belichick on a radio show done by Jim Gray called Let's Go, and the co-hosts last night were Bill Belichick and J.J. Watt.
Yeah.
And it's okay. So Belichick's doing, he's doing some Pat McAfee stuff, and he's repping underdog, and he's out there more obviously than he's ever been.
Yes,
but it's still it's ears opening to me hearing Bill talk a certain way because he'll like I said it in the open of the show to the con. Metaphorically speaking, say it's Sam Darnold, Justin Jefferson, and Blake Cashman.
Yep.
And that's the next opponent for the Patriots. So, Darnold, blah, 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 good. Jefferson, good. Cashman, good, smart, good. Questions. So you never really hear him say what I caught him say last night. And he said, if I'm the New York Jets, I tell if I'm with the New York Jets, I'm telling my guys the best team in the NFL is the next team we're playing.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so now you got to think with Bill, is it because it's the next best because it's the next, the on to Cincinnati?
On to London.
Okay, on to London.
Yep.
Or is it he brought O'Connell into the league? He's fond of him.
Yeah.
And he had Flores.
Yep.
And they're fond of each other. So is it overly effusive praise? Bill isn't really like that either.
No, he's not.
Or maybe it's the best in the history of the best talking about the best.
Yeah. It is an interesting kind of calibration thing to do of how much unfiltered Belichick. I mean, unfiltered Belichick, or at least as close as we're going to get to unfiltered Belichick, is a weird thing because we've just not seen it ever. It's like, I mean, you knew it was there, but the thing of, this guy's actually going to tell us what he thinks now it's fun because obviously he knows more football than any of us ever will and has forgotten more than any of us will ever know. So hearing his thoughts on things are really fun. But yeah, it is a strange thing. I know he's fond of O'Connell. I know he thinks highly of O'Connell. He came down, I think, before that or after that Thanksgiving night game a couple of years ago to just tell him, hey, I think you're doing a great job with the program. And obviously very fond of Brian Flores as well. So I think the respect for the way they're doing things is genuine. Yeah. I also think that if he's a coach in that situation and, was the coach of the Jets for a few hours, I guess, before he took the Patriots job. But I think he would probably be saying the same thing. If, look, they're 4-0, we don't have any reason to think that's not legitimate. So let's treat this like it's the best team in the league because there are 2 undefeated teams left in the NFL. The 2-time defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs and the Minnesota Vikings. So it gets to a point pretty quickly where it's hard to sit there and say, okay, this is a fluke, especially with the teams they've beaten the last few weeks. Right. I think he probably would be talking about that as a coach anyway, but you look at a lot of what they're doing and a lot of the opinions that I think he has of the people that are doing it. I think there's probably some legitimacy to what he's saying there.
So then J.J. Watt said something about the Vikings defense that was rather glowing. And then Belichick came over the top on him after J.J. And paraphrasing, I wrote these down. Nordo taught me how to properly write on Post-it notes while I'm driving. But I dropped my pen. So therefore,
it requires talent.
Yeah. All right. 3-2. That was Fiend, a Fairness and Nordo act, and we were kidding. But Belichick basically said something like they played in, and you've heard it a million times and probably thought it. They've been playing in front the whole time. Yeah. And, the next part of the test is, I think how he put it, is facing the stress of coming from behind. Yep. Well, then I'm like, how does one do that? I mean, how do you
seek that out?
Thank you. Yeah, it's we love being sought, but we don't seek things like that. Yeah. So
we
I guess
prefer not to be tested.
By happenstance, that eventually will happen. Sure. But then the next layer is, like, in my heart, with O'Connell in this group, this staff, and then the players who have been here the last 2 years, that's all they faced is stress. Yeah. Whether they put it on themselves in 2022 and had to win miraculously some games, or last year with those 4 quarterbacks and the injuries and everything, they've passed the stress test, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they have as a coaching staff. I think when he says that, I filter that through Sam Darnold, I guess, in terms of...
I filter it through Sam Newton.
Okay. Yes. Sam Newton has been cool under fire in these situations. I've watched Sam Newton longer than I've watched Sam Darnold, so my Sam Newton scouting report under pressure is probably a little more detailed. But the thing with Darnold, I guess, is playing quarterback changes when you're behind, when defenses know you're going to throw and they can come after you a little bit more, and you're just playing the drop back game and everything's one dimensional. I think that does change the nature of the position for a quarterback, especially if it's a significant deficit. So how he handles something like that, if they get in that setting, I think is interesting to watch. I don't know that they're going to get behind by a lot because I just don't think this defense is going to give up a ton of points, but close games do change things. So how you handle those moments when he talks about not being tested in that regard yet, that's, I guess, where I think about it is how does Darnold respond to those moments?
If it was a wager, a mythical wager, you had to win. Say it's a heaven or hell situation, or say it's a 100 or a 0. Mm-hmm. Then if I were to say they're going to win 10 games or more, and I'm spotting you a 4-0 start. Yeah. I think you, me, majority of people, simply because of where they are and what we've seen or heard, would say yes, they are.
Yes.
All right, so now here's the question.
October 1st, Ben Goessling's predictions are more optimistic than September, whatever it was, whenever I filed that. September 7th, Ben Goessling's.
Okay, well, let's, so like this year, I didn't put a win total on them into the season. I'm just, it's like a couple of seasons ago. I mean, I felt it, and I said, I think they're going to win 12, O'Connell's first year. Yeah. I put them on 12 wins, had my reasons, blah, blah, blah. They win 13. Last year, put them on X amount, was wrong. This year I didn't do a win total. It's the way I laid it out was, I just feel that I've seen enough teams over X amount of years where I don't know how many they're going to win, and I don't care.
Yeah.
I just know what I see is a playoff team.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it's going to get there. I'm not going to get into Green Bay and Detroit and Seattle and the Rams. No, I just know this is a playoff team. Okay. But I didn't have the confidence to be like,
yeah, I was there too.
This is an 11 or a 12.
Yeah.
Well, so okay, that's locally and that's us. Well, like nationally, power rankings and everything in the 20s and Darnold terrible in the Jets in Carolina or average with the Jets in Carolina. Even though we've talked that out a million times, man, it's such an unfair thing to look at what was there and who was leading it compared to who's here and who's leading it. But nevertheless, a lot of people take the low hangers, specifically nationally, to get onto the next topic. From your elite football mind, what has everybody missed? Like into the season, those who didn't have the confidence to put a 10, 11, 12, or 13 on this team, what do you think outside of Darnold? Because that's the low-hanging fruit. What was missed?
Well, I think reservations about the secondary was a big part of it. I mean, you think about all of the defensive backs they signed in training camp and saying, okay, we have to reinforce this room pretty quickly because some of it was injuries and some of it was just a lack of depth in general, but I think the moves they made
perceived lack of depth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Booth and Caleb Evans
from last year,
right? Yes. When they make the moves they made, and then they continue to do it with Gilmore and adding guys like Bobby McCain in training camp, I think there was this. Okay, how is this all going to work with the secondary? But you're basing that a little bit off of what we saw last year in terms of that secondary getting tested and picked on at the end of the season. They have done a good job so far of not having that happen. And I think the corners they have, whether it's Gilmore, Griffin, Murphy, it's a group with more experience, a little more situational awareness probably than they've had in the past. I mean, that was one of my big reservations was how is this secondary going to handle itself? And is that going to hold up over the course of 17 games? And, you have guys that have played a lot of football and guys that are playing a lot of snaps this year. So those things are still, factors they have to manage. But I think a lot of my reservation was the secondary and, probably Darnold, how it was all going to go. I mean, I thought Darnold would be better than he'd been. I don't know that I expected this,
right?
At least to this point.
Well, and for me, not being an AFC snob, I had heard of Blake Cashman. I mean, Blake Cashman went to high school with my son.
Right.
So I've kind of known him a little bit for X amount of years. Wonderful, wonderful guy. Lost touch with him when he went to Minnesota, then the Jets. But here he is. He's unbelievable.
Yeah,
Blake really Cashman's unbelievable. Really I had no idea he was that fast, that good.
Yeah.
And, Van Ginkel, too. It's like with Van Ginkel, you hear all these things. Mm-hmm. By the way, great story.
Yeah, thank you.
The Rock Valley story.
Yeah.
You went down there. I want to talk about that in a minute. I have it in the Tolstoy. But like with Cashman and Van Ginkel, they've been so clutch for this team and so important. I just had no idea how overall good they were.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it. I mean, Van Ginkel, you saw, I had gone back and watched that game against the Dolphins game against the Rams from 2020, writing about Flores and his relationship with O'Connell in the past. And, you see Van Ginkel pop in the film of that, like, oh, this dude's really skinny for an edge rusher, but he can play.
Yeah.
And you kind of stick that in the back of your mind. And then he comes in, okay, this makes a lot of sense. The way he's played, and certainly the way Blake Cashman has played, is not necessarily what I expected to be at this level. And even Kamu Grugier-Hill, the last couple of weeks, has made some major contributions. The 2 picks, and then had a strip that Gilmore recovered for a fumble before they called it an incomplete pass in that Houston game. I mean, even talking to him yesterday about, and I think Emmanuel Acho did a really good video on this too, but Grugier-Hill said a lot of the same things. They're in cover 2. I figure Bynum and Harrison Smith can handle the deep combination that the Packers are trying to run. It was a dagger with a vertical route and then an over. So he figured, I can poach this over to Christian Watson and maybe make a play here. And he does. And, so that level of recognition, intelligence, situational awareness, I think has helped them a lot. I mean, they lead the league in interceptions right now, and like 2 or 3 of them are from linebackers.
Yes.
So, yeah, that has made a big difference, too.
Well, yeah, Kamu Grugier-Hill has played 47 snaps this year. Yeah. And he leads the team in interceptions.
Yeah.
I mean, so like when you're really good, not good, really good. Okay, well, in the opening segment, I looked at Brett Favre through the first 4 games compared to Sam Darnold through the first 4 games, and it's very similar. Darnold's passer rating's higher. He's thrown more touchdowns. He's thrown 2 more picks. The completion percentage at 68 is the same.
You mean Aaron Rodgers?
Say it again.
You said Brett Favre. You mean Aaron Rodgers?
Oh, no, I mean Brett Favre in 09.
Oh, okay.
I didn't
I thought
say
you were
that.
talking this week's
I'm sorry.
Packers to Jets of
Brett Favre 09.
Gotcha. Okay.
4 games.
Yep.
Sam Darnold 2024 4 games. I apologize. Okay, well that's tangible through 23% of the season. But I mean the best of the best ever to best have ancillary players.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, seriously, I said it yesterday. Nobody in the universe could have predicted your leading sacker after 4 is Patrick Jones with 5, and your leading interceptors is Camus Grugier-Hill with 2.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's when your ancillary pieces are doing that, and you know what you're going to get out of A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, because that's why they're paid what they're paid. That's unbelievable.
Well, and think about the last few years, how much we've talked about kind of the need for a middle class, if you will, on this team. It's been a lot of high-paid veterans.
I like that.
A lot of defensive players probably, especially in that side of things. Then you have rookies that are playing bigger roles than maybe they're ready for, but you're like mid-price veterans. I mean, Tom Johnson was an example of this, a guy that they got that came in, played a valuable role, isn't going to make tens of millions, but it's a guy that you have to have in those moments of a season where a play or two may made the difference between a win and a loss. They have a lot of that middle class, and they signed a lot of it this offseason, whether it's Grugier-Hill certainly there. Cashman's making more money than that. Van Ginkel is probably, upper middle class, maybe, just a tier above that, whatever you want to call it. But
I didn't know we were going to get so political today with this vanishing middle class back.
Yeah. Well, on the roster,
why don't you just say it? Van Ginkel is Chanhassen and Cashman's Eden Prairie.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I think a lot of it has been when they have had the Edina quarterback or the Southwest Minneapolis, whatever you want to call it, in terms of what you're paying.
Yeah.
And then a lot of defenders in that range, too, over the last few years. Just the transformation of the roster makes this possible. And they are getting a lot of contributions from they signed all of these one-year free agents in the offseason. I mean, Aaron Jones, too, Sam Darnold. I mean, they are getting a lot of contributions from that group specifically.
Well, it's nutty, too, because we've spent so long, and once in a while, PA's like, you started covering, was it 2012? Was it 2013?
Yep.
And you just kind of go through, what an adventure that's been with this football team and the ups and downs. But how many of those years have we been able to talk about this team, its wins and losses, without some sort of, this deal needs to be restructured?
Yes.
This guy's absolutely leaving. We can't afford him.
Yeah.
It's bargain basement. At one point, we're vying for Kelechi Osemele, formerly of the Ravens at the time. And that was back when high-end guards were going to make $7.5, $8.5 or so million. And the Vikings, we're sitting here with the pockets turned out going, we just can't do it. He goes to the Raiders and we're looking in the Brandon Fuscos of the world and trying to make the most with little. How many of your years covering the team have you not had to have that conversation? And it feels like this is one of the first, Ben, because, it wasn't quiet by any means, but signing Justin Jefferson, we're not sweating the balance of the bank account. Then just, and not really under the cover of darkness, but ultimately we knew Christian Darrisaw was going to require a fair wage.
Right.
That deal just happens, and we're not all immediately running to over the cap to see how screwed we are in 2025.
Yeah.
And you're re-upping Harrison Phillips, who's been bang up start to this season for him. And we got space in 2025. Like, it's been so long since we were able to do that because of the measured spending spree that Kwesi went on in the spring.
Yeah, and a lot of it has been, this is the benefit you get from having quarterback bills that come down. And it's not really down this year because of the dead money with Cousins that's still there, but that is coming. You can do deals, multi-year deals, knowing that the quarterback bill is not going to be high again for a few years. And the thing I think about, and I spend probably way too much time on the historical side of this and the financial side of it, so I'm going to try to combine the two here. It has changed Teddy Bridgewater's injury in 2016 changed the financial picture of this team for a long time.
Wow.
Because they were still in that sweet spot with rookie quarterback, and you can build around him, and they built a really good roster around him. And then he goes down, and you're like, well, we don't want to waste this roster. So then it's Sam Bradford. And then it's Kirk Cousins after that, because you're in this win-now phase to capitalize on the rookie quarterback deal that they still had a few years left to enjoy. And then it's, well, we don't want to tear down the defense, but we also need the quarterback. And then you're kind of just doing this rob Peter to pay Paul thing for the next however many years.
Right.
And now you're back in this phase of it with a young quarterback for a while that even if he's not playing right now, he's going to be, and you don't have the big $40 million cap charge, or $50 million as it's going to probably be for quarterbacks going forward. That's not on the books for a while, so it does buy you some flexibility.
But I will say though that this is where now, I want to give Goessling a ton of credit. We do have to turn that dial back to the draft side.
Sure,
and that has to be the infusion in the growth spot, because you mentioned Kirk changing that. Of course, that was fat cash, $3.84 fully guaranteed, and he was never going to take a discount along the way during his time here. Best of luck to him in Atlanta. The other side of this as well is you did pay Harrison Smith a lot of cash. You had to hold on maybe to a Linval Joseph. We questioned at the time. They ended up moving on. Maybe it was the right decision with Trey Waynes after the contract. But this was a defense that never replenished itself. Fadio Denebo was never going to be an adequate replacement for Everson Griffin, which caused that massive ice shelf drop following 2019 with the defense that forced them into bad money conversations that they weren't able to recover from, and that we're still finally seeing the sunlight on the other end in 2024.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you think about all the business they did going into 18. It was, we have to re-sign. Joseph and Griffin got deals. I think Griffin's was like a year early. They did Diggs, they did Hunter, they did Kendricks. They had kind of left Barr on the
Barr was kind of the odd man out, right?
He was, and it looked like he was going to be, and then he agrees with the Jets, and then they bring him back anyway.
The turn bit,
So there was all of this investment on defense that Zimmer wanted, even as they do it with the quarterback, and it's
$5 and $50 for Kendricks.
Yes, I mean it's okay. Rob Brzezinski, go wave your magic wand and make things happen, which he was able to do. But
he's actually pretty good at that.
He is really good at it. But it all, and I think he has probably had a few sleepless nights over the years of trying to figure that out. Now you don't have to make as many of those choices. It does change things quite a bit.
The Scribe, Ben Goessling, covers the Minnesota Vikings for the Star Tribune. When we return, Ben's going to walk us through his trip to Rock Valley, Iowa. If you missed that, StarTribune.com or at Ben Goessling, where you can find it via his Twitter feed. It was fantastic. And it involves Andrew Van Ginkel, plus a couple of chats for which I'm not ready. And we will see what Ben has to say about that. But first, here's Max with the cash thing.
The Fan and Two Men in a Truck want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with our national cash contest. Enter the keyword deposit at KFAN.com now for your shot at winning. That's keyword deposit. Enter it now at KFAN.com. Now. Stick around following every noon Vikings game this season for Vikings Overtime, hosted by Paul Meat Sauce Lambert. I'm also there as well, along with Robbie Rosenhaus, presented by Park Chrysler Jeep in Burnsville. Catch them all right here on KFAN and on the free iHeartRadio app.
What's Rock Valley, Iowa like? And for those who missed the story, StarTribune.com or at Ben Goessling to get immediate access to it. It was Andrew Van Ginkel was the focus, but what was Rock Valley, Iowa like?
Yeah, it was interesting to see it. I mean, I went down there. I had been planning to do this story on Andrew Van Ginkel, and because I knew he'd done a lot of work in his hometown to just kind of help people recover. He still lives down there. His house had some water in it. He didn't have it as badly as some houses did, and I saw a lot of those houses down there. So I'd been planning to do this story and figured, okay, I can make phone calls. And I thought, if I have a day to just go see it and understand it better for myself, what the damage was like, let's go do that.
Yeah.
So kind of settle it up. It's a small town, kind of a traditional main street, about 4,000 people. But it was very interesting to see all of the effects of the summer and just I think the optimism and the level of commitment a lot of people have to that town. I mean, the first thing I did was go to the high school. I mean, it's basically elementary school is here, high school is here. You can't see this if you're not watching the stream, but they're all connected, and then the middle school is kind of connected on the other side of it. I went and talked to the high school principal. The middle schools are right now in trailers. You walk into the high school, and I walk into the high school principal's office. She said, "Yeah, I typically have a corner desk, but that got completely destroyed. They walked in.
Destroyed in what? For those who don't know.
So they got like
it was the rain
of water in the high school. So they told me that the gym floor was so warped it almost looked like a roller coaster. That the former high school football coach, he's probably 6'1", 6'2", said after the storm I could stand underneath the basketball hoop and grab the rim flat-footed because the floor was that warped. I mean, we're talking 8 feet of water in the auditorium. A lot of classrooms, you still see caution tape because they're still just trying to put things back together. I mean, this was 3 months ago.
So businesses, I mean, like some businesses went out of business, right?
Yeah, there were businesses that are either, planning to reopen if the business gets fixed up, some that probably have moved to different spots, some that said, we're just going to move down the road. There was a flower shop that got badly damaged, and I talked to a lady that had bought an office space just kind of as a side business to kind of manage with her daughter who had just graduated from college. And the florist calls and says, "Hey, you have space in there? I want to keep my business going. It's summertime. It's wedding season. It's all that kind of stuff that you need to keep flowers going because it's a seasonal thing." So people have made it work. I think a lot of the businesses have reopened, but there's houses on stilts because foundations got rotted out so badly that people are having to re-pour concrete for their foundations and they'll put the house back on. That was like the most shocking thing I saw. Lot of garage doors seemed like they didn't stand a chance. Either just ripped off because they probably were, I don't think the flooding did that, but this is not getting fixed. So you end up ripping it off, dented, bent, siding gone, mud up to second levels of houses. I mean, they only had one person die in the storm, which I think was a minor miracle. But yeah, lots of damage that is going to take a long time to fix. Still a lot of families living in FEMA trailers, that sort of thing. So that town needs there's a lot of hope there, but it also, I think, needs a lot of help.
You grew up in Minneapolis, right?
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yep.
Okay. And like I've been all over the place, but Washington, D.C., so like inner cities, cities.
Yep.
Is the feel I got out of this, and actually with some people with whom I chatted about your story, who were giving the story a lot of praise. There were two who were from small towns.
Right.
I'm not from a small town. Whether it's Washington, D.C. or outside of Los Angeles, Pasadena for City College, calling races in San Francisco, blah, blah, blah. The small town feel of the galvanizing that has to happen. When things like this happen, to say it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I guess it's serendipity. It's a positive that comes out of an absolute negative.
Sure.
But you know what I mean here?
Yeah, for sure. And I talked to Van Ginkel about it, and he was kind of matter of fact about it, as he is about a lot of things. But I think it was just like this, I don't see what the big deal is. This is just what you do. I mean, this is you.
What an outlook on life, man.
Yeah. I mean, he basically kind of talked about, okay, you fix up your house. And when you get done cleaning all the stuff out of your house, you go outside and say, okay, who else needs help? Let's just go down the street. And, the principal said, yeah, we saw him out all summer. And this is an NFL player recovering from foot surgery in this, 5-6 week break that you have before the start of training camp. He said he was up at the Morgan Wallen concert. Then at the storm, his wife FaceTimes and said, we got water coming in. And if you go on her Instagram, Sam Van Ginkel's Instagram, you can see all of the videos that she posted of, I think it was sewer water coming in through the basement windows, kind of those half windows you have in your basement.
Yeah, the egresses,
wells, for egress. It's getting filled. So, okay, he drives home. You start cleaning stuff out. People lost, baptism certificates, birth certificates. He said he lost a lot of stuff, or at least had a lot of stuff get muddied up. And then you just try to fix it and say, what can we keep and what needs to get tossed? So you do that. You keep going, and then you go to the next person's house, and people said, yeah, I just saw him around town, hauling out laundry machines that got ruined or dryers, just taking appliances out and saying, yeah, I'm a strong guy that can move offensive tackles. So, yeah, I can help you with your stuff. So a lot of it, he was just kind of like, yeah, this is what you do in a small town, and you just go for it. All of the teachers, it was the principal said it was the first day of my summer break, and the new playground equipment got flooded out, and it took a few days to get back into the school to see how bad things were. But all of the teachers basically just said, you know what, this is going to be our summer. We're going to come back in, tear down trim, pull out wet carpet, throw things out, get rooms painted back up, try to get things looking decent. The teacher's lounge was one of the few rooms in the high school that was completely back to normal. They're not using it for a teacher's lounge. They're using it for special ed classes right now. And that was like, let's get this done now so that we have a good space for this. And our stuff, we'll all figure it out later. I mean, a lot of the teachers are just like, you know what, I can manage with this for now. It'll get back to a better spot later on, but let's deal with the things that need to be done first, and that's helping and serving kids.
I kind of feel, and maybe I'm too naive or Pollyanna-ish, and I know that this is typically equated to or put, in terms of the identity of small town America. Mm-hmm. I kind of feel like that's most people. And I know today that there's a standard level urban versus rural and standard level of suspicion about people that you don't know and all of that. Yep. But when you have tragedy like this, and we're seeing it now, sadly, these storms don't stop. We're seeing it in the southeastern part of the states with North Carolina in particular, just in trouble.
Yep.
I think when this kind of stuff happens, the playing field is completely equalized. Mm-hmm. It's all level. I truly believe that the average person, and I'm not trying to take away from the
you mean in Minnesota or
I think
this area?
I think nationwide, and I'm not saying that
I haven't seen that.
Well, I think I haven't been face to face with floodplains, and I mean we had flooding in the river valley down in Mankato, and people helping each other out in a similar vein.
And they got it from this storm this year too.
Not to what we've seen maybe with Iowa and North Carolina right now, where it's just Helene laid waste.
Yes,
but I truly believe that the average person, when we're talking about these sorts of things happen, I think the average person does want to step up and do their part. I think ultimately, and you hate to say that something awful brings people together, but sometimes it does.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's me being naive, but I do believe that the average person, when their neighborhood is on stilts, that kind of brings things back to a basic level of humanity and community.
Yeah, I think there is something to that. I mean, I remember being in D.C., a couple of big snowstorms, 2-3 feet of snow, and my wife and I were like, okay, we can help here because we actually have the big winter coats that we don't need for much else in D.C., but we can come out and help. And, that you see a lot of people out just helping people clear cars. And that felt the most like Minnesota to me when I was out there. It's just when everybody's like, my car is buried and I got to get to work. Yeah, let me help you out. I mean, there's a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, even if it's like, I need to help you get your car out so then I can get my own car out. Even if there's some self-interest involved, ultimately it's a mutual benefit.
Yeah, I think there's some of that. I think there is probably a unique amount of it in places that deal with harsher climates or harsher weather.
Yeah.
I mean,
like Florida, the way that they have to deal with constant hurricane bits.
Yeah, I mean, even with us sometimes in the winter, and it's not typically tragic, severe stuff to that level, but just, hey, my car's stuck. Yeah, let me, I'll get back there, I'll push it, we'll put some sand down. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff that I do think is a bonding agent for people in some ways.
Next time we convene, and we'll see where the Vikings are after the Jets game, where Sam Darnold is, stuff like that. I'm not ready for the gaze casting.
Yeah.
Of what if Darnold continues like this? Are we giving him $90 million promised? And then what do you do with McCarthy? I'm just not ready for that. I don't think anybody should be, because it's way too early, and there's still a lot of the story to be told. Great story in the Star Tribune, and I will see you in London, okay?
Sounds good.
That's Ben Goessling. He's the scribe at Ben Goessling via Twitter, and all of that is courtesy of Standard Heating and Air, standardheating.com. Kevin O'Connell, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, joins the radio show 15 minutes from now on KFAN.
Fan.
See two of the biggest names in folk rock as they take the stage together. Don't miss out when the Avett Brothers and Trampled by Turtles co-headline the XL Energy Center on October 24th. Tickets are still available for this incredible show. For more info and to get yours today, head over to KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Alrighty, Kevin O'Connell, about 10 minutes from now, 9 to noon. It's a TCO Tuesday, and Kevin O'Connell's nice enough to join us each and every Tuesday. But first, here's the con.
Yeah, News to Nord is brought to you on a daily basis by The Casino at Canterbury Park, CanterburyPark.com. Live Racing 2024 came to a conclusion this last weekend. Already pumped for 2025, but fun events, and you're feeling the felt all year round. With poker, blackjack, and table games. Plan in advance to go on Thursday for the NFL Pick'em game. Chance to win hundreds of dollars simply by picking the games correctly. It's super cool, and it's free, by the way, for the NFL Pick'em game. Go to CanterburyPark.com. You know, these games last night, we talked in some length about Lions Seahawks last night. And I hate to guarantee things, and I just want to get this out of the way before the head coach gets here. Mm-hmm. You just can't lose to the Titans. I mean, it's not a thing that should happen. And looking ahead to the schedule and what this gauntlet of things was supposed to be on the front end, the Vikings have weathered the storm. They're 4-0. But this game last night, man, I mean, the Will Levis, he hurts his shoulder. He's down. Then Mason Rudolph comes in, kind of looks competent at times, but mostly just an unexplosive, completely disinterested bit from a quarterback spot, and it was the Tony Pollard show last night. They beat up on the Tyler Huntley-led Dolphins. Speaking of quarterback issues, Tyler Huntley 14-22 for 96 yards at 4 yards a clip. Caleb Williams thinks that's an awful performance. The fact of the matter is the Titans ahead on the schedule, while the Vikings are enjoying their 4-0 start. There are several other teams in the NFL right now, whether it's the Dolphins, it's the Titans, the winless Jags. These are teams that are on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. It was ugly football last night. Thank goodness Seahawks and Lions could take our eyes away from it.
And injuries, along with distraction, obviously can be the ultimate equalizer, because you just think into, we talked earlier about, the Vikings at 4-0. You got Bill Belichick on Sirius NFL radio saying, if I'm running the Jets, I'm telling them the best team in the NFL is who we're playing next. And here's why. And then you think about the ballyhooed into the season, the Miami Dolphins. Okay, well, this is a disaster. Why? Tua Tagovailoa goes down. Maybe some other things, but that's the A topic. The San Francisco 49ers, with the news they're getting about Christian McCaffrey and now both of his legs, both of his ankles.
That's awful.
And that, they won this weekend, but that's something. Well, Javon Hargrave is another one they lost for the season, so they're going to have to push through that, which leads me to elevating my level of respect for the Kansas City Chiefs and just what Andy Reid does and how relaxed and poised Patrick Mahomes is. I mean, Rashee Rice is probably going to be out for the year.
Yep.
They've lost significant players either for short patches or long patches.
Well, Pacheco's out for the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Couldn't think of the name. Pacheco was the newest one before Rice, I think. Yeah, perfect example. And yet they're undefeated, and they plan to stay that way this weekend. I mean, it's confidence and poise and attention to detail are just so important in so many facets of life. But professionally speaking, in the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs are proving that.
Tonight on Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. start, Lynx and Sun, Game 2, PA. They lose Alyssa Thomas was fantastic in that first one. Lynx needing to battle back and get this one tonight. How you feeling about Cheryl Reeves' group?
They're going to win tonight. And after, they're going to win tonight simply because in watching the Sunday game after we got back, and I caught the final 2.5 quarters, tightly contested. I think it'll be lower scoring tonight. But in listening to 2 interviews done by members of the Connecticut Sun, Alyssa Thomas being one, you can't find a group more relegated to or accepting of the age-old cliche, well, you got to steal one on the road.
Yeah.
Well, we stole one on the road. It's a human nature thing. They stole one on the road. Lynx will win this evening. I have no idea what the point spread is, but I feel very comfortable the Lynx will win tonight. And we'll see how comfortable we feel with the Minnesota Vikings against the New York Jets, because when we return, Kevin O'Connell, the head coach, joins us from Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center on KFAN.